understanding that if he pursued the path of the expansion of knowledge, that would be intrinsically meaningful. That's the path of growth. That's the path of adventure, all of that. And it's aligned with what matures you and makes you more responsible and sets the world in order. And the instinct of meaning signifies all that. We have this wrestling match going on in our culture, let's say, between the nihilists and the atheists and the true believers, you might say. And one of the faults of that war is that no one stops to elucidate or delineate exactly what it is that we're arguing about. So you have people like Dawkins, they parody the traditional conceptions of God, a superstitious being, nothing more than a defense against death, anxiety, or the opiate of the masses, the old man in the sky. The conceptualization of God in the Old Testament and the New Testament is unbelievably sophisticated. And to reduce it to that kind of parody is a stunning disservice.
You know, like, what are you going to do? You're going to just not try it forever? You're just going to dismiss everything forever? And I feel like people that dismiss things like that, this reductionist perspective, you're essentially saying you have the answers. Mm-hmm. And to dismiss the whole question of God, or of whatever you want to call it, higher power, a creator of the universe itself as a conscious entity, whatever it is, to dismiss it just because you're trying to decipher the writings of fairly comparatively unsophisticated people, because we're talking about people from many, many thousands of years ago without access to the information we have today. And then you're also dealing with the fact that many of these stories were of an oral tradition for over 1,000 years before they were ever written down. So to just dismiss that as superstition and silliness without any curiosity about the root of these things, why they resonate with people, and to just say that this is superstitious nonsense that people choose to believe in, and this reductionist perspective of the known reality that we currently exist in. It's a foolish way of interfacing with something, and it's shocking when a obviously brilliant man has a foolish way of interfacing with a very complex situation.
Well, it's especially odd in his case because he's also the formulator of the idea of meme. And
right.
Like, a religious story is a meme that's been selected by time and crowd. That's a good way of thinking about it. It strikes to the heart of the matter in ways that are sophisticated beyond conscious understanding. Can I tell you a story? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. This is a good story for the psychedelic experience, perhaps, at least as an analog. So, in the story of Exodus, there's a number of circumstances under which Moses has an encounter with God. And they're very useful stories to understand because they point you to how that can make itself manifest in your own life. So the first real encounter that Moses has with God is in the story of the burning bush. And by this time, Moses is an adult. He's left his home, he's gone out and he's got married. He's apprenticed as a shepherd, which was a very, very hard job in those days because shepherds not only had to protect the weakest and serve them, but also keep the lions and the wolves at bay by themselves out in the wilderness. It was a very hard job. And Moses has mastered this. So he's grown up and he's adopted a role that's like a standard social role. You know, he's a husband, he's a shepherd, he's an adult. Okay, and so kudos to him. But then one day he's out in the wilderness by the holy mountain. I think it's Horeb in that story, but the holy mountain is always the place where heaven and earth touch. And so there are all sorts of transformation stories that occur in the biblical accounts at Mount Horeb or at Mount Sinai, where God and earth meet. And he's out near the holy mountain, and something attracts his attention. And he goes off the beaten path to investigate. Okay, so that's the first thing, that's the first bit of wisdom to derive from the story. you'll have your role, and you should have your role as a socialized adult, right? So you're kind of a type that way. You're maybe even a cookie cutter type, but you've adopted this mature social role. It doesn't make you a full individual, but it's better than being immature and staying in your father's tent, for example, which is what Abraham does until he's very old. So something attracts Moses' attention, and he goes off to investigate. Okay, so, and then he sees that it's a burning bush. And so what's a burning bush? Well, it's the tree of life, and life is often represented as a branching tree. And it's on fire because it's compelling, because fire is compelling. And fire is alive, and it's a symbol of life because everything that is alive burns. That's what metabolism is. And so a burning bush is like life itself intensified to the ultimate degree, and that's what attracts Moses' attention. And he gets closer and closer to it, which means he investigates more and more deeply. And as he investigates more deeply, he starts to understand that he's nearing the depths. He's on sacred ground. He takes off his shoes, and that's an indication of his willingness to transform in identity. And he continues to investigate, and then the voice of being itself speaks to him from the depths, and it tells him that it reveals itself to him as the ground of being itself, and it transforms him into the leader who invites his people away from slavery and who stands up against tyranny. And so that's the story of Moses' baptism. And so what does that mean for the ordinary person? Well, it means that you need to grow up and adopt a role. You need to mature. You need to become an adult. You need to be a good man in your time. But then you have to pay attention to see what attracts your attention, what calls to you, because there's an autonomy about that, right? You don't get to pick what interests you. It picks you, and you can respond to that call and investigate or reject it. Those are your options, and if you reject it, you stay in your box. But if you follow it, something will call to you, and then if you investigate that, that will transform you. And if you investigate it deeply enough, it'll transform you into the person who can stand up against tyranny and who can lead his people away from slavery. And that's how God is defined in that story. God is the thing that calls to you, to take you out of your role, that will shape the manner in which your psyche transforms itself as a consequence of your diligent investigation into what calls to you. And so that's the God that's portrayed. That's one image of the God that's portrayed in the Old Testament.
Are you aware of some of the more recent work that's been done by scholars in Israel, where these guys have now come up with this hypothesis that the burning bush was actually, it was a DMT experience, and that the burning bush was most likely an acacia tree, that the acacia tree is apparently rich with DMT, and they think, the way you get a DMT experience is you smoke it, right? And that they had some method of achieving psychedelic states through this, and this is where Moses is encountering God.
Well, we have one of the things...
Have you read any of that stuff?
I know about the theorizing, and it's certainly the case that people have been using psychedelic experiences for we don't know how long.
Right.
Hundreds of thousands of years, no doubt. And they've had a profound cultural consequence. One of the things that a psychedelic experience does is amplify that sense of intrinsic interest, right? So it strips your perceptions of their inhibition by memory. That's a good way of thinking about it. So that you see what's there instead of your habits of perception. And so it's a way of amplifying, you could think of it as a way of amplifying what's represented in the biblical corpus as a calling. And the thing that's odd about the calling, well, when you can think about it this way, when you're laying out a podcast, when you're participating in a podcast, you're following a golden thread, right? You're following where your interest takes you and your curiosity takes you. And that's not something you can pre-plan, right? It's something that happens in the moment. So imagine that you're focused on your goal of having the most interesting conversation possible and communicating what's derived to the broadest number of people. So that's the overarching goal. Okay, now you focus on the moment and a spirit arises within you. That's a good way of thinking about it. That's the logos. A spirit arises within you that leads you on a pathway that's an investigation into the truth. That's part of that calling. The psychedelic chemicals, they they heighten that. They heighten the manifestation of the underlying mystery. That's another way of thinking about it. They do that neurochemically. And so, now what's the association between that and religious revelation in the Bible? We don't know. We don't know.
Have you read any of Marco Allegro stuff?
No.
John Marco Allegro wrote a book called The Sacred Mushroom of the Cross.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I read that back. Oh, my God. 1974?
Well, so you probably read it before it was bought up by the Catholic Church.
Oh, I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, it was bought up by you used to have to get old copies of it if you wanted to buy it, and then it was recently republished.
Yeah, I read that a long time ago. I had no idea what to make of it. When I read it, I thought, I have no idea what to do with this.
It's a problem because to really understand what he's saying, you'd have to have a deep understanding of those ancient languages.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a very difficult book to evaluate.
Because there's very few people that are even qualified to, many people have disputed some of his, he has one claim that the word Christ can be traced etymologically, how do you say it? Etymologically,
yeah.
To an ancient Sumerian word that means a mushroom covered in God's semen.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was his assertion that the idea was that they thought when it rained, that rain was the giver of life, and it was literally God's semen that made things grow, and that these mushrooms, because they would show up so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it rains, if you go to bed, you could look out at just your lawn, and it's complete grass, not a mushroom in sight. And you can go to bed and then wake up in the morning, and there'll be big mushrooms there. It's really weird. And that these things, when they would eat these psilocybin mushrooms that would appear out of nowhere, they genuinely were referring to them as God, that this was like a gift from God, and that was tracing back to the origin of the word Christ. But it's very tortured, to really understand and to be able to dispute it, you'd have to have a deep understanding of Aramaic. You'd have to have a deep understanding of Aramaic. You'd have to have a deep understanding of the original doctrines, what is the actual translation? What does it mean? You'd have to understand the ancient Hebrew version of it. How does it differ?
All the webs of associations.
Oh, God, it's so crazy. When we read it in English, I mean, what was the original version? The original version, all the ancient letters in ancient Hebrew also doubled as numbers, right? So words had numerical value. Like the word God and the word love apparently have the same numerical value. That is a bizarre concept for us to try to wrap our heads around, a language which that words also have numbers in them, that your letters also mean numbers, and that there's value, certain numerical value to certain words, and that you would use them in the context of these conversations. You would understand where I don't understand. I don't have that. I have English. It's like we have math, we have language. They're separate, and you're missing something in what they're trying to say. So what John Marco Allegro is doing, he's taking the oldest version of these stories on record, right? He's taking the Dead Sea Scrolls. He's taking stuff that's literally written on animal skins, and one of the ways that they deciphered it to try to put it all together, they had to take the DNA samples of these parchments to try to figure out which ones are from which cows, if they're from different cows. And that's part of the way they figured out how to put all the stuff together. This guy studies this for 14 years. And he was the only ordained minister that was a part of this deciphering committee. I think there was 14 people. I don't remember how many people. It might have been 20. But he was the only one of them that was agnostic. So he had become, when he had started studying theology, he kind of lost his faith, apparently. He started realizing there's so many versions of these stories. They're coming from different places. He became sort of like, hey, I think I'm agnostic. I'm just going to step back and have this approach of not knowing, not having a doctrine, not having an ideology that I'm attaching myself to. And so then when he goes through all of this is a straight-laced scientist, by the way. This is not like some guy looking for psychedelics to be a part of everything. Yes, it's a
very serious book.
Right. And there's a lot of those people that are doing that. They're looking for psychedelics to be a part of everything, sort of to validate or justify their own use of these things. He wasn't doing that at all. and he wasn't like Wasson, where a guy who went down and experienced the psychedelic experiences in Mexico and then came back and described them for mainstream literature. This guy was doing it like
a scholar.
And his whole purpose was just to decipher the Dead Sea Scrolls. But it was so compelling to him when it was over, he like had to break ranks and he had to write this book. And then they took that book out of circulation, I believe. Find out what happened with the Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, how it was, because he published another book shortly afterwards that was the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Christian Myth. And I think it felt to me when I read that one, it's almost like he has to write a book because they took the other one away, because it's kind of like saying most of the same stuff. Mm-hmm. But he believed that that what they were writing about, a lot of it was fertility rituals and psychedelic experiences, and that they were hiding a lot of these stories, like they were hiding the knowledge underneath these stories to try to, in parables and all these different ways, to try to obscure it from the Romans, obscure it from the people that conquered them, so they wouldn't know they would know the secrets of this thing, this ritual in which they would experience God.
So why is it that psychedelic use has played the role that it's played in your interests and your pursuit of knowledge? What do you think it's done for you that's been valuable?
I think we're in a weird place in society where the term drug is a blanket, and it covers things that have vastly different effects. It covers caffeine, it covers nicotine, and it covers dimethyltryptamine, which is crazy. It's crazy that all those things are drugs. Adderall's a drug. Benzodiazepine is a drug. Xanax, there's a million of them. They're all different, and they're all drugs. And the idea that psychedelics are a drug, for lack of a better term, that's what we use. I don't think that's what they are at all. I think they are probably why we became people. I think they are probably why society advanced. And I think every great ancient culture probably celebrated them and used them. It seems like there's so much evidence out of Egypt of the use of psilocybin, various different drugs, various different psychedelic experiences, the iconography of the pineal gland seems to be a big part of multiple cultures, not just Egyptian, but even Catholicism. If you go to the Vatican, there's this enormous pine cone that is a statue there. And I was very lucky when I went to the Vatican. We got a guide. We hired a private guide that was a scholar from France. And when he's not working in the summers, he gives these tours, and they're very thorough. And he was a brilliant guy. I wish I could remember his name. I should probably find it out to give him credit. Brilliant guy. So he takes us through, showing us all this artwork. It's incredible, explaining why they had little penises, and that it was explaining the whole thing, that big penises were thought to be barbaric, and it was not representative of like someone of class and dignity and education. And so we get to this pine cone, and he says to me, he goes, "Do you know what this represents?" And I said, "Is it the pineal gland?" And he goes, "Yes." And then we start this conversation of why these Catholics would have this enormous representation of the pineal gland, which they reference as the seat of the soul, and that this gland, which is in the center of your brain, is thought to be literally a third eye. And on reptiles, it actually has a cornea and a lens, this gland. Like literally, it's exactly where the third eye of Eastern mysticism is. And they've got a representation of it right here. And it's thought to be where dimethyltryptamine is produced. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this whole connection to it is so old that it seems like you go back to the John Marco Allegro stuff, you go back to the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are the oldest version of the Bible, the only version that I believe the only version they have in Aramaic of all those stories. And if he's right, if John Marco Allegro is right, it all kind of makes sense that these people were having these experiences much like the Greeks were with the Eleusinian mysteries, much like multiple different cultures in the Amazon, all over the world have experienced these profound ceremony experiences that lead to these journeys into the spirit world, these connections with higher consciousness, this something that when you're experiencing it seems very, very real, but also very preposterous when you try to explain it to people that aren't experienced. You know, it's like Hendrix. Like, are you experienced? Have you ever been experienced? Well, I have. Like, it's that. Like, with that understanding that that's possible, the world changes. Because now you know that that's possible. You could live your whole life and not know that the most shocking, profound thing in existence is 3 hits away. 3 hits away. And all of a sudden you're in a completely different universe in 20, 30 seconds. That's nuts. And the fact that that is dismissed, that people look at it as like, oh, you're just escaping reality, and you're just, like, it might be the source of civilization itself. It might be the source of language. It might be the source of the expansion of the human mind over a period of 2 million years, the doubling of the human brain over a period of 2 million years, which Terence McKenna felt directly coincides with the shifting of the tropical rainforest turning into grasslands, which would force these primates to experiment with new food sources, and these ungulate cows that were everywhere that would shit, and then these psilocybin mushrooms would grow in their shit. Observed primates flipping over these cow patties, looking for beetles and grubs and things to eat. It's everywhere. Like, you can see it all over Africa. If there's something on that, they're going to try it out. And if these things are trying it out and they're doing this over a period of 2 million years, and they develop language and culture and weapons, and they start thinking about things, and they become different than every animal around them. And this was McKenna's stoned ape theory, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And Dennis McKenna, who is, a legitimate scientist, Dennis explains it even better, because he explains it with the actual mechanisms that your brain, the things that fire up when you encounter high-dose psilocybin experiences that would lead you to the development of language. Glossolalia, the connection of sounds and objects and bringing things together in a manner of communication. Also, they realized that in low doses, it increases visual acuity. It makes people more amorous, makes people hornier. They're going to have more sex. They're going to be better hunters because they can see better. They're going to be a little more sensitive to the environment. They're going to be more aware. Edge detection's different. There's like so many different things that happen that if you're thinking about what made people people, it's a mystery. We want to pretend that we understand things because of the fossil record and this and that. Sure, we kind of understand, but every now and then we find a new human that we didn't even know exists, like Dennis Ovens. What was that? Not even 20 years ago, I don't think? So now there's a whole other branch of human beings that they weren't even aware of 20 years ago. Whatever the fuck happened that took us from all the other primates that are still here and made us this, it's pretty profound. And I have a feeling that psychedelics were at least involved in that process. That's my belief. And my belief is that the sweeping Psychedelics Act of 1970 that they passed essentially to target civil rights activists and anti-war activists. That's what they did. They wanted to go after the hippies. And they went after the hippies with MK Ultra, with Tom O'Neill so brilliantly outlines in his book Chaos. They went after it and they created the Manson family. They created that family. They taught that guy how to do that so that guy would kill people and he would be a psychopath, and now hippies would be psychopaths. And then all this anti-war shit would just get stopped by sensible people. Then Schedule 1, everything. Psilocybin, marijuana, all down the board, everything becomes Schedule 1, the most illegal of illegal things. So all these people who are experiencing all these Ken Kesey people and, all the LSD people of the 60s, all those people become criminals instantly. And they just threw water on the whole movement. And it worked. It really worked. It was Nixon and all the people that were in charge back then. If you look at what happened from 1960 to 1980, this confusing era of the 70s,